Hey guys, today we're headed over to Reddit to find out which words from the November SAT students found the most challenging. I'll walk through each one, and I'll show you how they directly connect to words from my book, Robert's Extremely Nerdy Guide to Digital SAT Vocabulary. Ready? Let's jump in. All right, first off, feasible means applicable. Well, applicable here is the wrong word. If you mean doable, that would work because feasible means possible. And you'll notice in my book that I have all these synonyms grouped together under one main simple definition, and that's all chunked together in a larger thematic group of words that are related. Good roads and light traffic made it feasible for them to arrive an hour ahead. It was doable. It was possible. It's viable. It was plausible for them to arrive ahead of schedule. Did anyone give anomalous as an answer? Anomalous, great word. Anomalous means unusual, something that's irregular, something that's a bit different from normal. They experienced anomalous weather. So right now in November, it's quite warm where I live, but usually it's rather cold, obviously, in the wintertime. So it's quite anomalous weather. We might say it's abnormal. It's not normal. It's atypical. It's not typical. Ab and a here mean not. Anomalous, meaning no name. Like there's no name for this event. It's a very unusual event. Appraising or catalyzing. Yeah, this is another one from chapter 2. A lot of these words in my book are in order of priorities. The first couple chapters, really, really important. Appraise, to evaluate, to judge, to gauge. Let's have a look. To evaluate the worth or importance of or value of something. Professionals had appraised the painting. They've gauged the painting. They've evaluated the painting as being worth about $1 million. All right. Catalyzing? Well, that'd be something a little bit different. Let's see if we could find here. Catalyze. Yeah, we have catalyst. A catalyst is a person that causes a change. So to catalyze means to cause a change. So very different from appraising. To catalyze is to stimulate. Stimulus is the noun. Stimulate would be the verb. Impetus would be another great noun for this. The thing that causes the change. Was confounded one of the answers? Well, confounded is one of the many, many words that means confused. And there are so many of these. I put them all in a big list here in my book. Confounded meaning confused. The student was confounded by the complex equations in the class. She was totally bewildered, baffled, perplexed. A lot of these words have very similar nuances. All right, the word evident came up. Evident meaning easily noticeable, clearly noticed. Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of these words make the same, have the same nuance here. Apparent, conspicuous, distinct, marked, transparent, patent, overt, explicit. Well, again, there's so many synonyms here that mean this very similar thing here. Evident. The girl's crush was much more evident than she realized. She kept gazing at the person that she really liked. It was very clear. You can see the word evidence in the word evident. There's a lot of evidence that she liked that guy. Exploiting. Right. Exploit is one of those words that looks negative, but it could also be positive. Exploit just means to use. There's a bunch of fancy ways to say use. We can say utilize. We can say employ. We can say exploit. Or we can say leverage, which is a little bit fancy, that one. Exploit means to use something, usually to get a profit or to be selfish in achieving a goal. So for example, she exploited secret information to earn some money on a deal that harmed her partners. But again, that's a negative connotation, but you could also have a very positive connotation, a positive sense of the word also. For example, you could exploit this vocabulary book to get a great score. You could take advantage of this vocab book and get a great score on the SAT. And of course, just boost your vocabulary and become a better reader. Was the vocab for Module 1 fraudulent, exaggerate, obscurity, and consequence? Okay, we got 4 in a row here. Let's deal with fraudulent first. Bang, I got a direct hit with that one. Fraudulent, using lies or deception. You can see the word fraud, which would be the action or the person. He is a fraud. These people used a fraudulent scheme to trick businesses into giving them things for free. They swindled, they cheated these businesses. Exaggerate. Okay, well, to exaggerate is to overstate something, to describe it as more or greater than it really is. The politician exaggerated the impact of all their policies, and they said, it's going to solve all the country's problems. They've inflated the problems. They've exaggerated. Overstate would be another good word. The opposite would be understate, to kind of de-emphasize. This is to overemphasize. Obscurity. All right, we've got that in the book. Obscure as an adjective means uncertain. So this would just be the noun form of uncertain. Another word for this is ambiguous, vague, indistinct. All these words just mean unclear. Consequence. We can see this word in the roots section of my book here. Consequence is the result of an earlier action. Con means with, and sequence, it means to follow. So the result of something. The consequence of failing to study for the SAT is going to be a low score. That's the consequence, the thing that happens as a result. Oh, you put authenticity instead of fraudulent. Well, authenticity, I got that word. Authenticity means something is real, something is genuine, it's legit. Short form for legitimate. It's valid. It's true. I found authentic Korean barbecue restaurant in a small Canadian town. It was legit, it was genuine. And it's a very different word than fraudulent. It's quite the opposite of fraudulent. Fraudulent, of course, meaning fake. Pretentious sounded more right. Well, if you don't know the word, you definitely got to go off your ear what you remember hearing. Pretentious means snobby, trying to appear more important or talented than one actually is. If you are snobby, arrogant, smug, conceited, pompous, haughty, all these words just means that you believe that you're better than you actually are. You're very pretentious. You're pretending to be something that you're not. You must mean incongruous. Okay, I got that word right here. Incongruity. An incongruity is something that doesn't fit. It just doesn't work together. So, for example, bright purple hair is an incongruity on someone who was otherwise very professionally dressed. I guess that's true. If you're going for a job interview and you have a very formal outfit, perhaps you wouldn't want to have bright purple hair. But you know what? Who knows? Depends on where you're trying to get a job, I suppose. Anyway, incongruity or incongruous doesn't match. Something is inconsistent. Indoctrination. I do have doctrine. Doctrine, and probably you can get to the word indoctrination from doctrine. A doctrine is a belief. It's actually a set of principles within a system of belief. So, for example, a school can have a doctrine of inclusivity, which means that all students are welcome and respected. That's just the beliefs. So if you're trying to indoctrinate somebody, you are trying to teach them or get them to believe something. You're probably trying to brainwash them, because it's usually a negative kind of word. Brainwash. You're trying to convince them that something is true, even if it's not. So perhaps this could be relating to political indoctrination or religious indoctrination, or just some other sort of philosophy to try to convince somebody that they should believe something. Irrefutable, good word. This is from chapter 7 again. Unable to be disproved beyond dispute. It is an irrefutable fact that melting of ice in the Arctic is damaging to polar bears. They are suffering, and you cannot deny that. It's irrefutable, meaning, of course, meaning not refutable. It's It's one of the 4 prefixes that mean not. The others are il, im, and in. And you cannot deny that. It is an irrefutable fact that those mean not. Obsolete or counterproductive for the art question. Okay, obsolete means outdated or no longer useful. It's a good word. Typewriters are obsolete. We don't really use a lot of those these days. Drawing with a feather and ink rather than a pen is pretty obsolete. Travel by ship was made obsolete. Due to the development of airplanes. Oh yeah, by and large for passenger travel, that's true. It's obsolete, it's outmoded, it's outdated. Counterproductive. Well, that is a completely different word. Counter. This is another one from the prefixes section of my book, and let's see what it says. Counterproductive means tending to hinder, tending to go against the achievement of a goal. Counter meaning against or in opposition. Productive meaning, of course, you're getting stuff done. You're going forward. You're making progress. What's an example? Well, if you constantly criticize employees, that's counterproductive. You're not progressing at all. It's actually the opposite. It's counterproductive. It could lower their morale, their feeling, the emotion, the happiness that they have for working at their place of work. It could negatively impact their performance. So productive, counterproductive. Was it palpable or dispersed? Palpable comes from the Latin word to be touched. And yeah, that's what it means in English too. Able to be touched. Palpable. Able to be touched. So sometimes it means it's so intense that it could be felt like an emotion. The emotion is palpable. Their joy was palpable. It's a bit of a metaphor. It's as if the joy could be touched. So palpable I have here in my list with concrete, tangible, palpable. These all mean real and touchable. Disperse means to scatter, to send off in a different directions. So the crowd dispersed when the police officers arrived. They scattered. Understated. Well, I have in my book the noun form here. I have understatement. It's a common literary term, and it's in the literary chapter of my book, Literary Terms. An understatement is a description that doesn't show the full truth of something. You're kind of minimizing the truth. For example, he told his doctor he smoked 5 cigarettes a day, but that was an understatement because he actually smoked 25. He's minimizing the truth. Remember a little while ago we saw the word overstatement, which is a synonym of exaggeration? Well, this is completely just the opposite. If you overstate something, you're saying it too much. Like, I told you 1,000,000 times, clean your room. That's what I might say to my daughter. I told you 1,000,000 times. That's overstating the case. Understating it is kind of minimizing it. It's like Bill Gates saying, yeah, I got a couple dollars. Of course, he's quite wealthy. He has much more than that, but he's understating his wealth. His wealth is understated. Corroborate. Let's spell it correctly there. Corroborate. That's another good one from chapter 2. I'm telling you, the early chapters of my book are heavy hitters. To corroborate is to confirm or support something. Co or core meaning together, to support something. The evidence corroborated the account of the crime. He saw the crime and the evidence supported that, and it helped to build a strong case against the suspect. Here, I suppose rob comes from the same meaning as robust, meaning strong or strength. So core meaning together, rob, strength. I'm guessing that's the etymology of this word. I chose provocative, but I don't know honestly if it's true. Well, let me tell you, if you chose provocative meaning to cause a strong reaction, then you're correct. Pro meaning coming forth, and voc meaning to call, like vocals, to cause like you to yell. That's provocative. So, for example, the artist's provocative painting sparked controversy. from the people. It made them say things out loud. It made them argue and debate. It was very provocative. It provoked a lot of discussion. You chose sophisticated. Okay, sophisticated means experienced and knowledgeable. It especially refers to someone who's quite cultured, someone who maybe knows a lot about arts or literature. As in the example, the sophisticated members of the team liked to go to the opera together. Well, I say, if they go to the opera, then indeed they are quite sophisticated and refined. Perhaps they are cosmopolitan, very worldly people. Okay, from module 2, did you have amorphous? Amorphous is a miss. I do have a, of course, in the prefixes. We've already talked about a, meaning not, atypical, apathetic, anarchy. A or an meaning not typical. Not emotional, apathetic, meaning having no real emotion, being kind of indifferent. Anarchy, having no rule, like society has turned to rioting in the street without any rule. There's no police, there's no government. It's an anarchy. So what do you suppose amorphous would mean? Amorphous, no, and then morph, shape. And ous is just an adjective ending, so it refers to a noun. Or you could put the word is, he is, something is amorphous, something that lacks shape. Maybe a cloud is amorphous. Substantiate. Oh, that's another one from chapter 2. We just looked at the word corroborate a little while ago, to confirm or support an explanation. Substantiate's a synonym of that. It means to prove, to confirm something. She substantiated her claim that her neighbor was vandalizing, destroying her property by showing some evidence of him in the act. She proved her claim. She corroborated her claim. She affirmed it. She validated it. She established it. All those are synonyms, and they come out a bunch, as you can see. Guys, was it innovation or subtlety? Okay, these are two totally different words. Let's look at the first one, innovation. That's from a Roots chapter of my book. Nov means new, like novel, and novice, someone who is new at something. Innovation means a new idea, a new development, something where there's newness inside of it. For example, the smartphone was an innovation. It was a great discovery and step forward in the field of mobile communication. So that's innovation. What about subtlety? Now, I've defined subtle here as delicately complex, something that's fine and delicate, especially in a way that's hard to notice. So, for example, the words that he chose, his choice of words created a subtle feeling of sadness and yearning. Great writers and great poets will do that with their choice of words. They'll have this kind of nuanced, fine, delicate, complex feeling that they could evoke with their words. Sometimes when you drink coffee like I do, you could detect the subtle hints of chocolate, for example, or certain berries within the flavor. The other choices are mandatory, selective, and one more I forgot. Well, it's too bad you forgot. I would have probably told you. Mandatory means required. It's mandatory that visitors sign in at the office. They must. It's a requirement. It's requisite. Some of these have slightly different nuances, but they all generally mean required. Selective, on the other hand, I have to go to chapter 3 for that word. Selective means very particular and fastidious. That's a great word too, meaning picky, fussy, finicky. Kind of related to this word. If you're selective, that means you have a really good sense of judgment. You have a really good sense of taste. You're one of those people that perhaps can detect the subtle hint of chocolate or berries within the flavor of a certain coffee. If you're discriminating or discerning or selective, you have a really good sense. She is selective when it comes to restaurants. Yeah, I said infer. All right, well, infer is another word from chapter 2, killer chapter, but I have it as the lead word, the head word. I haven't defined it because it's kind of an easy word. So I'll give you two harder words: extrapolate or deduce. To extrapolate something is to predict or infer it based off some past experience or some data. And to deduce is to conclude through logic. Both of those mean to infer, to kind of guess based on some information that you have available, to make an educated guess, to infer. Let's go. I had it at isolate. Okay, isolate is another word I have as a head word. So I'll give you two harder words that are somewhat connected. Alienate is to cause someone to feel unfriendly, to kind of make them feel distant. And to seclude is to put somebody into, a state of isolation, which means they're away from other people. During COVID, for example, you would isolate. You didn't want to cause other people to get sick, so you'd go into your bedroom by yourself, you'd close the door, or you'd put on a mask if you went outside, and you would just stay away from people. You would isolate. Now, of course, these two harder words have slightly different nuances, but for SAT, just the gist is usually okay. Okay, here it looks like you're asking about homogeneous and heterogeneous. We have those words here. Homogeneous means consisting of the same type of elements. We can say, for example, that the town had a homogeneous population. There wasn't much diversity. People were all kind of the same type of people. Homo meaning same, gene meaning kind, or actually person, or to make also. It means all of those things. On the other hand, heterogeneous, now I don't have this word in the book, but I have it as a follow-up word in the exercises below. Heterogeneous means diverse in content or character. Excuse my handwriting here, very messy. So yeah, it's completely opposite. Hetero meaning different, and gene means make or people or kind. So heterogeneous would be a very diverse crowd, a very eclectic crowd. Those are pretty good words. I better write them down too. Diverse, eclectic. Both meaning varied. Did anyone get any vocab questions with entice and forsake? Okay, that's a miss for me. I don't have entice in the book. The closest I have is like tempt. So tempting would be the same as enticing. Something is tempting, or it's intriguing, it's appealing, it's alluring, it attracts you. The pie was so tempting, it enticed me. I really wanted to eat that pie. Forsake means something completely different. And I have it here on my archaic English terms list. Although it's still relatively used, to forsake something is to abandon it, to leave it behind. I will not forsake my principles for anyone, is something that we might have said 300, 400, 500 years ago. I won't abandon my principles. I won't give them up. Transience, that's a great word. It just happens to be in my roots chapter, transient. Transient means lasting only a short time. Fleeting would be another great word. I'll write that down. Something that's fleeting or ephemeral. These are kind of hard. Or maybe even transitory. These all mean short-lived, which I'll write down too. Short-lived, not existing for very long. It is the transient nature of clothing design that causes styles to come and go. Sporadic. Oh, I've missed that one too. I got to add that one. I do have the word, I have words for random, arbitrary, haphazard, indiscriminate. They all mean random. So does sporadic. Sporadic means kind of starting and stopping. Like we can say that the rain is sporadic. The rain has been coming and going all morning long. Off and on is sporadic. Inexplicable. well. You could easily break that up into pieces. Inexplicable, not able to explain. Explic means, like, to explicate is to explain. The sudden disappearance of the airplane is inexplicable. We have no idea what the heck happened to that airplane. It cannot be expliced. It cannot be explained. We don't say explic. Derivative comes from derive, means to take from another source. You're totally correct. Derivative does come from what? I don't have derive. How dare I miss this? Derive, of course, would be the verb here. Got to add that one. And it means to take from something else, to base something on something else. This movie was really derivative. The plot is totally identical to this other film. They kind of just stole it. So we often use the word derivative to mean something like, it's not original, it's cliched, it's hackneyed, trite, insipid, platitudinous, formulaic. Some of these words are not there because they're probably a bit harder than the actual SAT. Insurmountable. I do have sur or super, which mean the same thing. And these are in my prefix, in one of my prefix chapters. Sur means above or over. It comes from the French sur, meaning, above or over. So we could probably use that to figure out insurmountable. So in means not able to over mount. Mount is to get on top of something, like to mount a horse. But what this word really means is it refers to a problem that cannot be overcome. Insurmountable means unable to overcome. So an insurmountable problem, it's just we cannot succeed. We're blocked. We cannot go over the obstacle. I think we've already seen the word anomalous, meaning unusual. Was it permissive for one of the vocab questions? Well, permissive. I got it right here. Permissive means allowing or forgiving a great deal. If her parents are permissive, they would let her do pretty much anything she wanted. They gave her a lot of permission. So similar words would be lenient. I think that might be the closest word. Maybe indulgent also. They're open-minded. They're kind, accepting. They're tolerant. They put up with whatever she wants to do. Okay, some transitions questions now. Granted. Granted is a word that's similar to certainly or admittedly. We use these words to introduce a concession. When we admit a point to the opposition, we are conceding. We're giving a concession. And these are good transitions to make a concession. Let me give you an example. It'll make it more clear. These gloves are twice as expensive as other gloves. Granted, they're also higher quality and they're more durable. So you admit a point. In this case, the positive thing is a point that you're admitting, even though you feel like it's pretty expensive. So if you want to simplify it, you can say it's similar to yet or but. And it's always most effective on the SAT to simplify your transitions as much as you can. And that's one of the secrets of beating transitions questions. In other words, you probably already know, is just for restating something. But you should know this other word, that is, which is short for that is to say. Do be aware that means exactly the same thing. You can quit school when pigs fly. In other words, or that is, it's not going to happen. You can't quit school. Accordingly to that end, moreover. Okay, let's fly through this quickly. Accordingly is the same as all of these. They basically all just mean so. The deadline was approaching, so they worked late nights to do everything on time. Accordingly, so. To that end, or to this end, or to these end, all the same thing. It's basically also the same as saying so. That's a great simplification. Make sure you write that down. Thomas wanted to become a chess expert. So he practiced for hours. To this end basically just means so. What it really means, an end is a goal. And so to this end means like toward this goal, to achieve this goal. but it's, like I said, it's best to simplify. Just think so. And of course, you probably already know moreover as just meaning something to introduce an additional idea. So furthermore, moreover, in addition as well, besides, they all mean the same thing. Also, as such or that said. Okay, starting with that said, that's another one that comes out a lot that confuses students. Let's simplify that one. That said, you could pretty much just say but or yet. The car is quite old. It's not very reliable. That said, from negative to positive, it does have sentimental value. It makes me nostalgic. It makes me wistful. It makes me remember good times, which is why I've decided to keep it. So that said is just introducing a contrast. Please don't confuse that said with that is. That is, don't forget, is restatement. And that said means but. Very different. Okay, now the word as such I don't have in the book yet. That's going to be in the next version of the book. As such, you could basically simplify to mean therefore, or simplify that even further to just mean so. I am an SAT teacher as such, as a teacher, as such, so I work really hard to prepare the best classes for my student. I'm a teacher as such, that's what I do. That was a sneak peek into the words that you need to know for the SAT and an example of how focused, organized vocab prep could make all the difference. If you found it helpful, there's a link below to the full book, and don't forget to drop me a comment. All right, guys, keep prepping. We'll talk to you next time.